They shared a tent in the dead of night, but he had no idea what she was claiming. The wind howled through the dense trees, sending leaves flying into the air like a swirling, chaotic dance. The forecast had promised only light rain, but it quickly turned into a relentless downpour, drenching the hikers who had been out for days. One man, tired and frustrated, tried to push forward, his backpack heavy with supplies, his legs aching from the long trek. He had been preparing for this hike for weeks, and now the wilderness seemed to turn against him. He had planned for solitude, time away from the distractions of the world to clear his mind and connect with nature, but nature had other plans. He had hoped to make it to the camp before the storm really picked up, but now drenched and cold, he was nowhere near his destination. His flashlight flickered in his hand as he glanced around trying to make sense of his surroundings. The dense forest, the endless rows of trees, all looked the same under the grey, overcast sky. There was no sign of a trail, no sign of shelter, and worse, no sign of where the storm was headed. It wasn't long before he realized he was completely off course. As he stumbled through the mud and wet leaves, he finally saw something in the distance. A small figure outlined against the flash of a distant lightning strike caught his eye. He paused, uncertain. He hadn't expected to encounter anyone else out here. With the storm intensifying, most hikers had surely taken shelter. But this person seemed to be alone. It wasn't a figure he recognized, and for a moment he hesitated, unsure of whether to approach. But the storm was getting worse. The rain fell in sheets, and the wind carried the promise of even worse weather ahead. With no other choice, the man took a deep breath and moved forward, calling out through the storm, "Hey, are you all right?" The figure turned, and for the first time, the man saw her clearly. She was soaked to the bone, her dark hair plastered to her face, but her eyes, when they met his, were wide and alert. She wasn't someone he knew, but she looked as lost as he felt. There was something about her, something almost familiar, though he couldn't quite place it. "I'm lost," she called out over the storm, her voice barely audible against the wind. "I don't know where I am." The man didn't know what to say. He wasn't much better off himself, and he didn't know the area well enough to offer much help. But there was something in her voice, a desperation that pulled at him. She looked like she needed someone, anyone, to help her. And though he wasn't sure if he should, he found himself asking, "Do you want to share a tent? It's the only shelter I can offer right now." Her gaze softened for a moment, and after a brief hesitation, she nodded. "Yes," she said, her voice shaky. "I just need to get out of this storm." The two of them walked together through the downpour, neither speaking much, both of them too focused on putting one foot in front of the other to worry about anything else. They finally reached his camp, a small single person tent, barely enough space for one person, let alone two. The man fumbled with the zipper, trying to open it, his hand shaking from the cold. Once inside, they both quickly shed their wet clothes, trying to find some warmth, though the tent offered little comfort from the storm outside. The man had his backpack with a few dry supplies, but there wasn't much. He pulled out a small blanket and handed it to her, then sat down on the far side of the tent. He tried to get comfortable, but the air was thick with tension. The storm had drowned out all other noise, leaving them in a silent shared space with nothing but their breathing. For a long while, neither of them spoke. The man tried to shake off the sense of unease that settled over him. There was something about the woman that felt out of place, like she wasn't just a hiker caught in the wrong storm. But what was he supposed to do? She was here, and he was stuck with her. They had no choice but to wait until the storm passed. After what seemed like an eternity, she spoke. Her voice was soft but firm. I'm sorry to intrude, she said, her words carefully chosen. But I need to tell you something. The man glanced at her surprised. She was looking down at her hands, her fingers twisting together nervously. Warm, what's going on? He asked, his voice low. She took a breath before speaking, her words almost too quiet to hear. I don't know how to explain this, but I am not here by accident, she said, her eyes flickering up to meet his. I have been sent here for a reason. The man blinked, unsure of how to react. Sent here, you mean? You are lost too? She shook her head, her expression unreadable. No, I know exactly where I am. I don't know why you are here. He felt a sudden shiver run through him. What? What do you mean? Why would you know where I am? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stared at the tent door as though she were searching for the right words. The man felt his heart rate quicken. Something about her was off. Her words didn't make sense, and her calm demeanor was too unsettling. She was acting like this was all perfectly normal, but it wasn't. Nothing about this situation was normal. Before he could ask more questions, she turned to him. Her eyes were piercing now, like she could see right through him. I don't know if you'll believe me, she said softly, but everything that's happening right now is part of something bigger, something that involves you. I wasn't supposed to meet you here, but I did, and now you are a part of it. The man's head was spinning. He had no idea what she was talking about. She looked completely serious, like this was a conversation they should be having in some secret, distant world where everything was more than it seemed. But out here in the middle of a storm, it feels out of place. He tried to push the thoughts away. I don't understand, he admitted. I am just trying to survive the storm. I don't need any more complications. Her gaze softened. I know you don't, she said, but it's too late now. You are part of it, and it's not just the storm, it's something bigger than that. The man didn't know what to say. He was tired, cold, and confused, but there was no denying the way she spoke, the certainty in her voice. It was as if she had known this moment would come, and somehow that made it worse. There was no way to know if she was telling the truth or if she was just caught up in something he didn't understand. For now, he just had to wait. The storm raged on outside, and all he could do was sit there, wondering how things had become so complicated. The night seemed to stretch on forever. The storm outside was unrelenting, hammering against the small tent, causing it to sway with each gust of wind. Inside, the man sat in silence, still trying to process what the woman had said. Her words echoed in his mind. You are a part of it. Warm. What could she have meant? How was he connected to any of this? He didn't know this woman, didn't know her past or her story, and yet she claimed he had become part of something bigger than either of them. His thoughts were interrupted when she spoke again, her voice low but steady. I am sorry if this seems strange to you, she said, but I need you to listen carefully. I didn't just stumble onto this trail. I've been following it for a reason that brings me here to you. He leaned forward slightly, feeling the cold ground beneath him, but his curiosity was winning out. Why me? He asked. Why would I be a part of whatever this is? Her gaze met his once more, and for a brief moment it almost felt like she was studying him, trying to see if he could grasp what she was trying to say. Because, she said slowly, you are more important than you realize. And something happened years ago, something that set all of this in motion. But she held up her hand, signaling him to wait. Before you ask, she continued, I should tell you that I am not from here, not in the way you might think. I've traveled long distances across countries, even beyond borders, to find what I need. And now that I have found you, it's only a matter of time before everything unfolds. He furrowed his brow, trying to make sense of her words. You are telling me you've been hunting for me? His voice was filled with disbelief. Not hunting, she replied, quickly shaking her head, but seeking. There's a difference. And you were always meant to be part of this journey. I couldn't have found you earlier, even if I tried. But now that I have, I can't leave you in the dark about it. Not when it's time. The man's mind raced. He was just an ordinary person, someone who had come out to the wilderness for a break, a chance to clear his mind. He wasn't some chosen one, wasn't involved in anything larger than life. But the intensity in her eyes made him feel like he was part of a much bigger puzzle than he could ever have imagined. I don't understand, he said finally, rubbing his forehead as he leaned back against the tent wall. I am just a guy trying to survive this storm. You are saying that I am a part of something important? Dub, something that involves you? She nodded slowly, her eyes darkening as she spoke. It involves more than just me and more than just you. It's about something far bigger than we both can comprehend. But you have a role to play in it, whether you believe it or not. Mean, the man remained silent, still trying to process what was happening. He wanted to believe her, but every part of his rational mind told him that this was all far too strange, far too unusual to be true. Yet there was no denying the sense of urgency in her voice. It was clear that she wasn't playing a game, and her words were anything but casual. And what do you expect me to do? He asked, his voice quieter now. Just follow you into this thing you're talking about? She paused for a long moment as if weighing the best way to respond. Not follow me. It's not about me leading you anywhere. It's about you finding your own path in this. And when the time comes, you will know what to do. The wind outside howled louder, but inside the tent there was only the sound of their breathing. The silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken thoughts. The man could feel his heart pounding in his chest. He had no idea what he was supposed to do, but there was something unsettlingly real about her presence. It was as if her very being was tied to the storm, to the dark night outside, and even to the cold hard ground beneath them. He glanced at the small opening of the tent where the rain continued to pour down, making the outside world feel even more distant and unreachable. It was clear that this wasn't just a chance encounter. There was something significant about tonight, about her and about him, but he couldn't understand it yet. Why now? He asked quietly, his voice filled with confusion. Why did I have to be a part of this now? Why couldn't this have waited? Because time is running out, she replied, her voice softer now. Everything is aligning in ways that can't be stopped, and there's no more time for waiting. He didn't know what to say to that. The words didn't make sense, but the way she spoke, so certain, so calm, made him wonder if perhaps there was something he wasn't seeing. Maybe he wasn't meant to understand everything right away. Maybe this was the beginning of something that would unfold with time. Look, he said after a moment, sitting up straighter. I don't know what you are asking of me, and I don't know what this all means, but I'm here now, and I'm listening. Her expression softened at his words, as if she had been waiting for him to say exactly that. Good, she said simply. That's all I need for now. You'll have more questions, and I promise I'll answer them when I can. But for now, just know that you are a part of this journey, and whether you like it or not, there's no turning back. The storm outside continued to rage, but inside the tent, a strange sense of calm had settled between them. The man sat back again, still trying to wrap his mind around everything. He had always thought of himself as an ordinary person, someone who kept to himself, someone who didn't get involved in anything complicated. But now it seemed as though that was all changing. He didn't know what to expect next, but something deep inside told him that this was just the beginning. He didn't know how, but his life was now tangled up with hurts in ways he couldn't yet understand. And that thought, as uncertain as it was, left him with a sense of anticipation for whatever came next. As the hours passed, the storm began to lose its strength. The wind slowed down, and the constant pitter patter of rain against the tent gradually softened. Inside, the air was thick with silence. The man could still hear the faint sound of the storm in the distance, but it was no longer the violent force it had been. The chaos of the night had settled, and with it came an uncomfortable calm. The woman beside him had been quiet for a while now. She seemed to be lost in thought, her eyes distant, as if she was looking at something beyond the walls of the tent. The man had so many questions, but each time he opened his mouth, he hesitated, unsure if he was ready to hear the answers. What she had already told him was strange enough, and he wasn't sure if he was ready to dive deeper into this world she spoke of. He shifted slightly, trying to get comfortable on the cold ground. So he began cautiously, his voice breaking the silence. What happens now? Her gaze returned to him as if she had been waiting for him to ask. Now, she repeated. Now we wait, and when the time is right, you will know what you need to do. But when is the right time? How do I know? You'll just feel it, she replied softly. It's not something you can explain, but when it happens, you'll understand. Her words didn't make much sense, but the way she spoke with such conviction made it hard to argue. He found himself nodding, even though part of him felt lost. There was so much he didn't understand. The whole situation was surreal, and yet, in some strange way, it felt like this was where he was meant to be. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The storm outside had fully passed, and the quiet of the night settled around them. The tent felt like a small private world, separate from everything else. It was as if time itself had stopped for a while, just long enough for them to be there together in this strange moment. Finally, the man broke the silence again, his voice quieter now, almost as if he was speaking to himself. I still don't get it, he said. What's all of this about? Why me? Why now? The woman turned to face him fully, her expression serious but gentle. You don't have to understand everything right now, she said, her voice soft but firm. In time, you will see the bigger picture, but right now, the most important thing is that you are here. That's why this all makes sense. The man took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair. He looked around the tent again, almost as if he was searching for something he had missed, but all he saw was the small space they were sharing, the simple gear, the rain-soaked world beyond. There was nothing extraordinary about the place they were in, nothing that screamed of grand destinies or hidden truths. So what exactly am I supposed to do when the time comes? He asked, still struggling to grasp the reality of her words. The woman smiled softly, almost like she was remembering something far away. You'll know when it's time, and when it is, you'll be ready. Her calmness was both comforting and unsettling. He wasn't sure if she was just trying to reassure him or if she truly believed that he was somehow meant for this, whatever this was. He didn't know if he could buy into it completely, but something inside him told him to trust her, to believe that there was more going on than he could see at the moment. A soft rustle from outside the tent brought his attention back to the world beyond. The storm had passed, but there was still something uneasy in the air. It felt like the car before something else, something bigger. He could feel it in his bones, a subtle shift in the atmosphere, as if the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. The woman seemed to sense it too. She stood up slowly, moving with a quiet grace. The storm is over, she said quietly, her eyes scanning the outside as if something were calling to her. But it's not the only storm we're facing.
What do you mean? The man asked, standing up too.
He wasn't sure if he was ready for whatever came next, but he couldn't just stay in the tent forever. She turned to him, her face serious. The real test is coming. The world is changing, and you are part of that change. But it won't be easy. There will be challenges, things that will make you question everything you thought you knew. But you have to stay strong. You have to trust that you are doing the right thing. The man felt a sense of dread wash over him. He had no idea what he was stepping into, but the way she spoke made him realize that this wasn't just some random encounter. There was something bigger at play, something far beyond anything he had ever imagined. Warm. Stay strong, he repeated, his voice tight. What are we even talking about here? What's coming? She shook her head, a small smile tugging at the corner of her lips. I can't tell you everything right now, but in time you'll understand, you'll be ready. But he wanted to ask more questions, to push her for answers, but something in her gaze stopped him. She wasn't telling him everything on purpose. He knew that she was protecting him from the weight of the truth until he was ready to carry it. But how could he be ready for something he didn't even understand? The woman took a deep breath, her eyes softening. You will be fine, she said quietly, almost as if she were reassuring herself as much as him. I believe in you. Just trust the path and you will find your way. There was something comforting in her words, something that calmed the growing anxiety in his chest. But at the same time, it didn't make everything clear. He still had no idea what was going on or what his role in this strange story was. But somehow her belief in him gave him the strength to push forward, to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the minute passed and the storm faded completely, the man realized that this was no longer just about surviving a simple night in the woods. It was about something bigger, something that would change everything he knew. The world had shifted, and so had he. There was no going back now. He looked at the woman, feeling a strange sense of calm settle over him. I'll try to trust, he said quietly, though doubt still lingered in his mind. But I need to know more. I can't keep going without understanding what's really happening. She nodded, her expression thoughtful. In time, she said, you'll understand everything. Just know this, you are not alone. And when the time comes, you'll know exactly what to do. With those final words, she stepped out of the tent, her figure disappearing into the still night. The man stood there for a moment, taking in the calm that had replaced the storm. He didn't know what was coming, but he knew that whatever it was, he was a part of it now. And that realization, as unsettling as it was, filled him with a strange sense of purpose. The storm had passed, but the real journey was only just beginning.